so this is gonna be kind of a weird thing for me. I haven't done a tutorial in quite a while. So, I don't know if it's really gonna be much of a tutorial, more just to essentially do a run through on Sky Factory 4. So, I got a server, and I'm not on the server right now. I'm actually on my little creative world where I'm doing a lot of testing for the NuclearCraft stuff. So, the design I went with was originally the redstone and the large helium, or the liquid helium, I'm sorry. So, it originally started with, as you can see off over there, that was the reactor. I accidentally put it down with the old copy and paste thing. Let me go run over real quick. Okay, so the reactor I got here is all just redstone and liquid helium. Now, I'm about to run through real quick what the certain blocks really do. But before I do that, let me show you exactly what this generates. And it works for all fuel sources. Okay, so as you can see, all I have is redstone coolers and liquid helium coolers. I have no other coolers in here. And I kind of like the whole window design because you get to see the inside and you get to make sure you don't have a random block in there or anything. That way it's not like that way it's not dark. You know, it can get very dark in there and it's a little annoying to try to work your way around. So if you look in here, as you can see, this does negative 43,240 cooling. I'm only saying it like that, but oh, hang on. Let me fix that. What was it again? Oh, what's this one over here? So I had, sorry, hang on. Yeah, that's right here. Let me do that. I fixed it on the other one though. I didn't even notice that until I went to my world, or my server with a friend of mine, and I placed it down and I was like, wait a minute, something seems why does it say 47 and it should be 48? And then I happened to look around and I was like, what if it's one of the things? And it took me a couple of them to make sure I can try and tell you, yeah, one of them wasn't big. So I filled it back up. So, yeah, as you can see, 44,160. Now that is just this, alright? Now as you can see in my inventory, this is the strongest fuel source. It has the base power of 1260 RF per tick and the base heat of 900. This is the highest base heat I could find and the highest RF per tick. So if I put this in here, it'll go down to negative 960. We're still in the clear. We're still in the clear on this one. It doesn't generate any heat, and it generates a crap ton of RF. And you still have plenty of room to add in extra stuff. Although, the designs that some of these people go with, they do the designs based off of the first fuel source. They don't go off of the highest level. You're wanting to go with a HECF251 oxide. That's the highest one, burns the strongest. Yeah, I don't know how much more I could really say. It does burn pretty quick, but also it does give you the most power. And you don't have to worry about your reactor melting. So the requirements for these, I made each one. We ain't doing magnesium, and we ain't doing tin. I'll tell you this right now. I couldn't figure out any of those. We'll go with the other ones, because the other two, I don't think they really even matter. The first one here is essentially the most efficient way to do this model. The most efficient way to use these blocks. Now, these are not, this is not for the redstone. It's for the liquid helium, but I included this in because this is pretty much the most efficient way to use the liquid helium and the redstone. You put it along the sides of the wall. You could you can also use it up on the ceiling. You can go all the way around. You know, add extra fuel cell or reactor cells, stuff like that. This is the most efficient design. The liquid helium works with the case in the redstone, and the redstone works with the cell. So, if you have this, it's 4 times. Now, the cell that I'm using, or the fuel source that I'm using for my Sky Factory world on the server, it's the 235 oxide, HEU 235 oxide. That's what I'm using. Its its heat rate is 375, and each of these is 140 and 90. That equals up to 230. 230 times 2 equals 460. 460 times 2 is 920. Now, over the 375, look at that. If my fuel source is going here to this one, we go to, where you at? This one. This is the one I'm using in my Sky Factory world. Its base power, you get 672 RF per tick, but the base heat generation is 375. I am cooling it with the coolant capacity, or the coolant rate of 920, and this is 375. So there's a dramatic difference between the two. So the cooling is overcooling it rather than the heat overheating it. I'm trying to come up with the best way to say this, but I can't think of any other way. So essentially, my reactor that I got, I even tested it before I sent it over to my Sky Factory world. I even tested it in here with this, and it works. And as I showed you over there at that one, it works. You get 960. So it's pretty efficient. Now moving on to the one that I thought was gonna work the best, which is cryothium gelate. I believe that's what they call it. Oh, it's just cryothium cooler. Now, extreme, the big reactors or extreme reactors, that's the one I've worked with the most, and I know a lot more about that than I do about this. I just went through just trying to make an example of what I actually understood, what actually works, what doesn't work, so I'm only at the basic level. But essentially, I thought this was going to work. I thought it was going to keep it really cool and stuff, but it actually does not work as well as you think. Now, this is something that you should think that is an extender. The way I see it, it's an extender. So, with this, it requires 2, and I'm saying that's right, 2 reactor cells at least, which means you could put 4 reactor cells on this, but it's not worth it. Essentially, the way I see it, it's more if you're building into the center of your reactor, put it in the center of your reactor. If you got a couple of cells that are right next to each other, that's where you need to put it. So it's essentially a extender. That's all I got to say. Now with the water cooler, the basics of this one is the requirements require it's either or. It's not both, it's either or. So use either the reactor cell or you can use a moderator. This is where my new design is starting to come in. As you can see, I got a bunch of water ones all the way around connecting to all the cells. It's sitting on top of that. That added extra cooling to it for me, which means I didn't have to add an extra cell, which also means I don't have to add extra heat to my reactor. I had extra cooling to my reactor. This may not be the best design, but essentially for the first timer, I think I did a pretty good job. Now, the moderators, I'm not I don't want to add that in just yet. I'm probably gonna have to anyway. But for right now, the way I see it, the moderators I'm not adding in. It's just better to try to get as much cooling as possible first before I do moderators. So let's get on to the quartz. Now the quartz requires to be adjacent to at least one moderator. Now this, for right now, would not be effective in the reactor. Hi. I don't. Okay, you want your little seat? Sorry, a bit of cuteness jumping up on my lap. Alright, so yeah, the quartz, it's not really effective in there at the moment. I mean, when I'm done, it probably could, but I can't see any effectiveness in it. So, moving on to the one that is currently being added into the reactor as part of the new part of the design, which is gold. Now, the gold cooler requires this. It requires you to be connected to at least a redstone and water. Now, this is where the best part comes in. As you can see, the gold is connected to the water, and on the other side of the gold is redstone. You put the gold here, here, there, and then on the other side, and then you got the redstone right here. So essentially, this doesn't change anything. It doesn't take out anything. It adds to it, adds to the cooling. It doesn't add to the heat. It adds to the cooling. So this gives you more opportunity to add in more cells. And then, as you can see, the water cooler is connected to a cell, which then allows you to, if you look at the gold, that allows you to put a cell on the water one, and then the gold, you add in redstone around that. So you can go all the way across to the from that redstone right there to this redstone right here, go all the way across. Glowstone. Glowstone requires you to have at least 2 moderators. Again, for this reactor design, no moderators. Lapis. Lapis has to be connected to a casing and the cell. And this would be the most basic design of how you could connect the cell to the lapis. And essentially it would be corners. If not corners, then on the side or on the bottom. That's about the best I can, come up with on that one. And the cooling for this is 120. Essentially, I probably should have put it down a sign to say what the cooling is, so that way you all can see it. But this is kind of a spur of the moment, so I'm sorry. I'll actually keep doing it from now on. The diamond. Now, diamond requires you to have water and quartz. Now, each of those, in order to get the cooling levels of those, you have to use its requirements. So, with quartz, you have to have a moderator, and with water, you just have to have a cell or a moderator. Now, that actually kind of works a little bit better if you do this. Let me get rid of that, and you do this. You go over here, grab this, and add it in like this. See, I believe that this would be the best design because essentially the water's touching the moderator, the quartz is touching the moderator. They're both getting their requirement done, which means they get their cooling. And then the diamond is connected to the quartz, it's connected to the water, it's getting its requirement, which means it's going to do its cooling. So the best way to do the diamond cooling is to have in that design. Now, Endurium, a lot of people you could recognize Endurium from extreme reactors or big reactors. Now, extreme reactors, I used Endurium for a while until I got up to Chirothium. Chirothium. I have a hard time saying it sometimes. So, with the Endurium here, you have to have it touching on a vertex of 3 reactor casings, which means one corner has to be connected to 3 reactor casings. Now in a reactor, it's square. Guess what? You can't add in a reactor cell, or not a reactor cell, but a reactor casing. You can't add that inside the reactor itself, which means the best way to use Endurium coolers, the corner of your reactor iron, and as you can see, it requires gold to be connected to it for it to work. Now, hold on one second. Let me think about how this is supposed to work. Alright, let me get this correct. Okay, so the way it says here, now it says must be adjacent to at least one valid gold block. Now, whenever I see that whole valid thing, I found out that means the gold block has to be active. So the gold block's requirements require you to have at least one valid water cooler and one valid redstone cooler. So with that means the water and the redstone have to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is touching a cell. Now they are doing that, and then looking at this, it's touching the gold. That gives its bonus. Now if you look at that, it's going to be added in there for mine. And it's going to be glorious. Okay, so moving on. Now we got the emerald. As you can see, the emerald requires you to be on one cell and one moderator. Now, the emerald has a cooling of 160. Now, again, the moderators, yeah, they would probably be useful to put in there, because then that could give me extra power, but I don't want to put that in there and then essentially just melt the reactor, because that's a lot of resource you really don't want to lose. Nighttime, I love it. Alright, moving on. Apparently Hurricane Katrina likes to come into this world. That's pretty interesting. Going on to the next one, which is the copper. The copper requires, well, it gives you 80 cooling, but it requires you to have one valid glowstone cooler. Now going back to the glowstone, over here, the glowstone requires you to have 2 moderators. Now think of like this, okay? The moderator, or the glowstone, requires 2 active moderator blocks, and it gives you a cooling of 130. The best thing about this is if you could do math and go back to this here, this cooling gives you, as long as you put it on one cell the correct way, so you got the one cell here, all these do their cooling, you do the math correct, you get 80, 200, because you got the extra 120, 290, 350. You get 350. But hold on, there's more. Now here is where the Chirothium cooler comes in. This adds extra cooling, because then this is where this whole extending goes. You extend it out one more, and you do the whole thing again with the redstone, the gold, all this. You keep repeating this all the way down, especially with the Chirothium cooler. You go all the way down. You're adding 160 to that as well, so after 80, 200, 290, 350, 450, plus then the 60, that's 510. It adds 510 cooling. But here's another issue. Once you add the extra cell, this is about the only issue, so this takes away a few of those. Right, or not a few of them. It takes away at least one of those coolers, the numbers. It takes it down. And that would potentially be the correct thing. I'm trying not to confuse you guys, but more just like, if you really want to try to extend it out, this seems like the best method of all right here, because you get 4 different coolers. They all work well with each other, because the iron only requires gold, and the gold requires these two, which these two are sitting on this. It cools this, but guess what? That is 4 times the amount, which means you're cooling it 4 times as much. Okay, so I essentially am done with the gold portion of the upgrade. I did test out the gold. It does work. Now, I need the weather clear. And I need time to be, well, normal. So I can actually, you know, not be blinded by the night. Sometimes it can get a long way. So, currently we're 18,000 cooling. And that is using this high level of fuel. Already had some depleted right here. That is a lot, especially with the higher level of cooling that has 900 heat generation. Now, if I were to add this, it should go from 18,240 to 19, or let's see, 18,240 to 18,330. Or 320, I think. Yeah, let me do the math. Yeah, 320. Sorry, I was thinking 90. I don't know why. Okay, so this should make it 400. And yep, it works. It officially works. Going all the way around this. Now, it doesn't work in here because, you know, I don't have the water, so I can't do the whole gold and iron thing to add more. And there's a fuel cell in there, but yeah, I just can't do it. So we're just going to go around, and we're going to see what the number is. Okay, I think I'm good. Alright, I think this is good. So, we were originally at 18,400. Now, what is the number? 20. Okay, we went up about 10,080. Was not expecting that number, but yes. So now we have 10,000 extra. So you have 28,480. That is extra stuff you can use. Now, let's do a little bit of math here. What is 28,480 divided by 900? Because that's how much heat the cell or the fuel produces. Okay, so I divided that up by 900, and the total you get is 31.644444 for infinity. And essentially, take out that 0.6 for infinity, and just use the first number, which is 31. That is how many cells you can now add in here to give you extra power. Now think like this. You can essentially keep stacking this on top of each other. You can just keep doing this. You put a cell right here, redstone all around here. And also another benefit, the helium uses the casing. So going all the way down this way, you can use the helium ones going all the way down. And I think with this, once you get to this point, I think you can connect these two, which allows you to go from here all the way down here. Now there is a big issue though, is that this row right here, going right here, and then this middle row right here, you can't use those. It's only the top and the bottom, so the two middle sections can't be used with the helium ones. That's kind of sad, but essentially this will allow you to keep adding cells into the reactor to make it more powerful. This is a perfect reactor in my opinion when it comes to, I'd say efficiency. We'll just say efficiency. For power though, I wouldn't say power. I wouldn't say you could generate the perfect amount of power that you want. I guarantee there's probably a better reactor layout out there somewhere, but with this, I mean, if you look at it, you could use the hottest fuel source there is for the reactor and still have cooling left over. I mean, you know, 28,000. You got yourself a deal.